Hello, welcome to another edition of That Millwall podcast. Today, possibly a little bit of a somber show with what's been going on at the Den in recent weeks. Tonight, we've got three panelists. Firstly, we've got the one and only Joe Zampa. Joe, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Stephen. How are you guys? It's quite nice to be on a show with all the youngsters all together. Yeah, it makes a change. Not having Mickey on there. I'm looking forward to it. And there's obviously more negatives and positives to discuss, but yeah, should be good.
And following on from his appearance on the EFL debate, Ben, how are you?
All good, mate. All good. It's been a while. Thought I'd make an appearance after my prediction the prediction show that we did. Unfortunately, my predictions seem like they're going to be the closest than anyone else's. So yeah, thought I'd jump on.
Yeah, Ben's been in hiding. He's not been able to face the
press,
the music as such. And finally, we've got another sufferer of the Norwich journey, along with myself. We've got Dan, who was there. Dan, have you recovered after Sunday?
Yeah, bit of a shit Sunday really altogether. We'll dissect now, I guess.
Well, yeah, we'll get straight into it. Obviously, this has been recorded off the back of a 3-1 away defeat at Carrow Road. Joe, I'll come to you first. Not really what we were hoping for. I know the record at Carrow Road isn't particularly great, but it wasn't good, was it?
No, the only positives were that I didn't go to that game. I was so close to going, and I think everything I tried just went against me, and I just gave up at the end. I'm quite lucky it didn't work out, but yeah, very disappointing. So I think for the first minute, for the first second, as soon as that ball was kicked off, you could just see the lack of sort of desire and passion from our players, and of course Norwich were doing what we do to some teams last season. They were pressing, they were working hard, they wanted the ball, they were first to the ball, and they're trying to make things happen. So it's really disappointing to see, and of course the scoreline reflect the performance, unfortunately.
And Dan, obviously I'll come to you, having been there alongside me. You kind of go into the game. I don't know about you. You go to an away game. You kind of hope the lads are going to, start off well and be compact and perhaps have some chances. But we just didn't really get going at all, did we? It was just completely and utterly a bit of a walk in the park for Norwich.
Yeah, really disappointing. To get up so early on a Sunday, especially for a game that was on the telly as well, to have 1,800 of us go up there and get served up that absolute shower of shit is, it's unacceptable, really. The stuff that Millwall Football Club pride themselves on, the passion, the desire, the work rate, none of that was there on Sunday. It was a really flat performance. I mean, we'll touch on players later on, but Danny McNamara seems undroppable, which is baffling. Murray Wallace at left back, suicidal. And Hutchinson's a bit past his sell date now, I think. And, there's a couple of other players on there that don't look particularly interested either.
And Ben, obviously, it's very difficult to talk about a team at the moment that seems to have a little bit of a lacking in direction, lacking in a style of play. I think for me, I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's possibly the most concerning thing at the moment. We don't seem to have an identity, and other teams are recognising that and capitalising.
Yeah, I think like most of us, and probably any football fan of any club, really, I don't think you ever mind getting beaten, right, as long as your players put a shift in. But by all accounts now, not only the Norwich game, but the previous two, we've looked just very un-Millwall-like and very un-Gary Rowett Millwall-like, to be perfectly honest. I think if you look over his spell as manager, we've certainly tightened up at the back. At the minute, we seem like we're just not very tight at the back at all, and it's probably what's been one of our main strengths over the last few years is now looking like a weakness of ours, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, in terms of direction, tactical play, we just look all over the place. We don't look like we've got any direction. We don't. If someone put a gun to my head and said, "What is the style of play?" I don't know if any of us would be able to say at the minute. I don't know what we're trying to achieve. Just all round a bit concerned at the minute.
I think the biggest thing you touched on there is the fact that nobody seems to know what they're doing, and in a sense that in a forward area, Joe, I'll come to you on this. In a forward area, we've signed Kevin Nisbet. We wanted to address the lack of goals from other areas. We only had Fleming and Bradshaw last year. It must be very frustrating for Kevin Nisbet to come into a side, as the main man, as he's clearly being picked, and we just can't seem to get the ball to him.
Exactly that. I mean, we touched on this during your Spaces show, the live show on Twitter the other night, because there's a massive gap, isn't there, between the midfield and the attackers, it seems, at the moment. Every time we break, you look at Nisbet, you look at Fleming, there's no one around them. The midfield don't sort of get close to them. The wing backs are certainly not playing high enough, or even fullbacks for that matter, are getting high up the pitch to support the attacking players. And there's a real sort of lack again of desire. And you're right. I mean, Nisbet's it's a quality player. I mean, the funny thing is people are even questioning now whether he's a good player or not based on his last couple of performances. But we've seen what he could do in pre-season friendlies. Okay, they're only against lower division teams, but he's got quality. You've seen how he controls the ball, how he links up play, how he takes his chances. But the trouble is, if you're not giving him the ball and not giving the ball in the right areas, he's not going to do anything for you. It's pointless having him, And something needs to change. This low defensive line, don't press, Gary out style of football is not just boring to watch, but it's really ineffective. It doesn't suit us at all. And I feel sorry for him. I really do. He must be sort of like thinking to himself, what the hell am I doing joining this team, because it's certainly not what we signed up for. He wants to challenge and try and sort of showcase himself to not only get in the Premiership with us, but maybe getting a move to the Premiership in the future. And the way we're playing at the moment, he'd be lucky to get a move to our Championship team, let alone a Premiership team.
And following on from that, Dan, I'll come to you. Obviously, we're singling out Nisbet there, but on Sunday you had Romain Esse, Zian Fleming, Duncan Watmore as the kind of attacking support to Nisbet, but they didn't seem to know really what they were doing. They were constantly chopping and changing, moving positions. Fleming would go on the left, then it's a central position. Watmore was playing sort of further forward, then dropping deeper, and it was almost as if they all took it in turns to try and find a spot that actually worked for them.
Yeah, I mean, with Watmore, I think we've seen him now he's joined in January, and we know since he's been for us, he's very hit or very miss. There isn't really kind of a middle ground with Duncan Watmore. He's either bang on it or he's completely off the boil. Fleming, after me saying last week after Bristol City, he needs to play in the 10. That's where he's most effective. I thought he was rubbish again at the weekend. I clearly think he's been a bit unsettled by what's happened in the summer. So on that front, it's the sooner the transfer window closes, the better, I think, for me, because he then knows he's going to be here, or if an offer comes in now at the end of the window, based on the start he's had, if an offer comes in of 10 million, maybe did the club take it now? I don't know. And, I think it's harsh maybe to criticise Esse in this situation, because I think he has been, with Emakhu, our best players this season, which I think says a lot when you've got two teenagers, both making their first steps into senior football in a very experienced squad that are probably one of the older squads in the league that have, on the whole, been together a long time. When them two are your standouts, to me, it says something probably isn't quite right in the changing room.
And Ben, I'm gonna put you right on the spot here. We've spoken about the attacking players, but at the back, we've been a club under Rowett that's been very much keeping clean sheets and proud of a strong defensive record. There's been a lot of debate. We've been involved in that, whether a 5 at the back or a 4 at the back is the right way to go. Sunday we got the 4 at the back and arguably looked worse than we've done with a 5.
Yeah, I'd like to think that there was some element of it being a bit forced. I think if Joe Bryan was fit, I think we probably would have played the 5. Just my opinion. So I would like to think there was a little bit of it being forced for Rowett. I hope it wasn't, and again, we'll touch upon it in a sec with just Rowett's post-match interview, but he kind of alluded to it there in his interview that fans aren't happy when I play a 4, fans aren't happy when I play a 5. I hope he's not just doing that to appease the fans at the minute. But look, just on the defensive unit as a whole, I remember saying last year, I thought that Hutch and Coops were probably the best centre-half pair in the Championship. There wouldn't be many I'd replace them with. That's very quickly now changed. And I think we're just looking like we need a huge refresh at the back. Again, Dan talking about Fleming potentially having his head turned. Is the contract situation not helping Coops? If it is, look, we need to move these players on. Hutch has obviously been riddled with injuries the last couple of years. He hasn't had a real settled or sustained period in the side. He doesn't look like the same player that we had over the last few years. Murray Wallace, I don't like to single him out because I think he gives as much as he can every week. I just don't think now he's up to the Championship. I think we played him out of position for such a long period of time, and I know he was brilliant for us at left back at times. But I think we need to move on from those sorts of players now. And I mean, Danny Mack, we could talk about until we're blue in the face. I think he's just completely shot of confidence. So I think as a defensive unit, it's worrying. Whether we play 3 or 5 at the minute, I don't think it would really matter, to be perfectly honest, or 4. It really doesn't matter. I just think we need a real refresh in that whole defensive unit.
And just obviously following on from what you said there, Gary Rowett come out after the Norwich game. What seemed to me it come across a little bit in defiance of his actions and his tactics and the way that he's trying to go about being Millwall manager. Joe, there was some very interesting comments made by Gary Rowett. One for you to start with. I've worked incredibly hard away from my family for those years, and I'm not going to lie here and say it's fine. It's not a problem, but I have to take that on the chin. And in some ways, I would rather that directed at me than the players, because at the end of the day, I'm the manager. I'm responsible for performances, and the performances probably hurt me more if I'm being honest. Gary Rowett's paid very well to be Millwall manager. Do you think he's perhaps either trying to get a bit of a sympathy vote? Is he feeling the pressure? Is it just getting to the point where he is fed up with having to keep explaining himself? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of watched that. I don't know about you guys. I watched the interview probably 2 or 3 times, to be fair. And my first thoughts were, I feel sorry for him now. He's kind of like pouring his heart out a little bit. He wants to kind of sympathy vote a little bit. But I think when you look back at it, you think, well, hang a minute. He's given his heart and everything else for the last 3 years. Okay, like you say, he's paid really, really well. He's living with, or he was living with a couple of the coaches. So I guess he's having a good time with his team, his coaches there with him. Also, his son and his daughter were living with him for long periods. So he hasn't been away from his family like he's saying he has. Probably his missus, but it's probably done him a favour, to be fair, being away from his missus for that long. So I don't buy that at all. But I get what he's trying to say. He's trying to sort of tell the Millwall fans, listen, I've given you everything. I'm here, The other part, which I thought was interesting, is him sort of purposely trying to defend the players and say, look, I take the blame, the performance. But then on the other hand, he's then saying that the players weren't performing, and how it's amazing how the youngsters in Maku and Esse shine through, and the rest of the team, senior players, haven't. So how can you defend them one moment and then throw them under the bus the next moment? So I think personally, he is sort of chucking them under the bus a little bit. I think the players feel that or realise that. And it's happened probably too often now. And I think that each week you're seeing the performances are not quite there. Could you have lost the changing room now? That's the question that I'm thinking of. Are the players not playing for him? Are they not trying simply for that reason to get in the sack? You can't recall many players that performed and gave it their all. I was quite impressed with Sav. People talk about his relationship with Sav not being great. Well, I think the last couple of games, Saville's been the only one that's been really, really sort of trying. I mean, Billy Mitchell always works hard, so it's very difficult to say whether he's trying or not because that's just the way he is. But there's lots of players there. I mean, Fleming being the prime one, and I hate to kind of have a go at Zian because obviously I like Zian. He's one of my favourite players at Millwall. But you can clearly see he's not happy at the moment, and he's not trying. I remember when I had that chat with Rowett end of last season, and me and Chris, and he was talking about Zian Fleming, how he got him on board, and he was quite proud to say that he sold him the dream. He told him to come to Millwall, and we'll get the Premier League. And even if we don't get the Premier League and an offer comes in for you, I won't stand in your way. You're going to get the move. You'll be playing the Premiership one day. And Zian loved all that, and that's why he signed for Millwall. So again, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but it makes me wonder: could Zian be having a right hump with Rowett? Say, hey, a minute, you gave me your words that if I signed for you, if someone comes with a decent offer, you accept it and let me go and play in the Premier League. And maybe because that's not happened, he's probably got a real bee in his bonnet now with Rowett, and on the back of that, he's not performing. Yeah, there could be so many conspiracies as to why he's not performing at the moment, but something tells me, him being such an important player, if he's not playing well, then it obviously reflects badly on the rest of the team. And you can see there's a lack of effort and desire elsewhere. So that's my thoughts anyway.
And Dan, obviously on the back of that, in the second half at Norwich on Sunday, it was visible that the 1900 or just under 1900 or so were very, very unhappy with the quality of the football, and were aided by Norwich supporters who were starting to sing the same songs that the Millwall fans were singing, aimed at Gary Rowett. And Rowett, for some reason, decided to stand up and clap over towards the Millwall supporters, which is a little bit of a no-no, and has obviously done a lot of damage. What did you make of that, and what do you think that is that a telling sign perhaps of where Rowett's at the moment?
Yeah, well, I was long gone by that point. I left after the third goal. I wasn't sticking around after that. I was said before I came on here to you boys, I left early from one game last season. I've already left early from 2 games this season. But as Rowett said, I pay my hard-earned money to go and watch this team on a weekend. It would have been very easy for me to stay at home and watch that on Sunday, but I didn't. I got up there, was really disappointed. I think Rowett has kind of shot himself in the foot there, really. There is still this talk. Does he get us? Does he not? Well, them actions on Sunday definitely showed to me he still doesn't get this football club. And I think if you haven't got it after this long of a time, then you never will. It's interesting. I'm going to pick up on what Joe said there about Fleming. If that is what's happened and Fleming's, got the hump about not being able to get his dream move to the Premier League and Rowett doesn't want to let him go, and now Fleming isn't putting in the effort, I think it's clear to quite a few of us now that he isn't quite up to the standard that he was at the minute last season, then we're actually take him out the firing line, or at least show a pair of balls and go, well, if you're not going to work hard for me, I'm going to put you on the bench until this transfer window's closed. Because that's what the manager gets paid to do. The manager gets paid to make the big decisions. And I know Fleming's our best player, but taking him out of the team might give him a kick up the arse. Because if he keeps playing like that, he won't get another sniff at the Premier League. It does pain me to say that because you boys know how highly I rate Zian Fleming. I do think he is our best player. But if someone's playing like that, then you have to take him out the team. And I would say the same about Danny McNamara, but for different reasons because of his poor continued form. But I just think Rowett shot himself in the foot with a sarcastic clapping. It felt like he came crying wolf in the press conference a little bit as well when I've listened to it back. Don't do that when we're all fans. We're not the type of bunch to feel that sympathetic for you.
No, and Ben, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Firstly, if you were Gary Rowett, would you be following Dan's advice and dropping Zian Fleming for the next game or 2?
I think I've been quite vocal, probably more so than anyone else in the group about Fleming. He didn't do enough for me the back end of last year, and that's continued into this year. So I totally get Joe's point on, if Rowett has promised him that move, and quite rightly so, he might have the arse now because we haven't accepted that bid. But for me, he didn't do enough last year. He hasn't performed at all this year. I mentioned it on the EFL show earlier that my concern now with Fleming is if we are going to be looking to cash in on him at some point, if Burnley aren't going to get their man this time, and they're going to look to get him in January. He continues this form, we're not going to get 5 bob for him, let alone 15 million. And again, I said it in the group to all you lads. My concern is you have to kind of sell when the asset's at its most valuable, and I feel like he probably was in the summer. So in answer to your question, Stephen, yeah, I mean, look, I think no player can be undroppable from any team. And if he has got a bit of an attitude at the minute, for whatever reason, not for 1 minute saying that he has, but if he has, and Rowett sees that, or he's not performing, then yeah, no player should be undroppable from that starting 11.
I have to agree, and I agree with all of your comments around Flemming. I think he clearly is somebody that come to Millwall on the basis that we were going to be kind of a stepping stone, and he would get his move to the Premier League, or it would be with us. He was going with us or without us. There was no two ways about it. And I think there definitely is a problem with Flemming. I don't think the style of football and the positions that he's asked to play in is doing him any favours. But if you're supposedly the star player, the talisman, you would find a way. You would try to get yourself into the game, and we're not quite seeing that. And Ben, just the next point, obviously, finally on Rowett and the press conferences after the game. Just a quote I wanted to pick up, and we have touched on this. It was really disappointing in many ways, but something we certainly prided ourselves on for a long time as a team is being hard to play against and hard to beat. Very rarely have we been outworked, outfought. I can sometimes take being outplayed, as I think Norwich are a very good side and made some good additions to their team. They just ran with more drive, desire and energy than us, let alone the footballing side. When the manager's coming out after 3 games and questioning perhaps how much we're fighting for the ball and how much we're working for the ball, as a side that has predominantly built success on that, it's quite concerning, isn't it?
Yeah, hugely, mate, hugely. As I said earlier, I think any football fan, you can take getting beaten by any side, but you can't really take just rolling over. And there's been elements of that now. And again, going back to Joe's comments, is it a case of he's lost the dressing room? Because I just, when you hear comments like that, mentioning desire, hard work, just the kind of the absolute basics of football, and certainly a Millwall side, and a Millwall side more recently under Rowett of being defensively good. Yeah, it's concerning. If the players aren't putting it in, then you have to ask the reasons why they aren't. And normally that is because they don't like the manager, or they're falling out with the manager, or something's going on behind the scenes that they're not quite willing to do that now. Again, you look back at when Rowett first took charge, we played similar formations. We played with 3 at the back, 5 at the back. And at the time, kind of changed the way clubs viewed us, and probably clubs just always saw us as a 4-4-2 sort of team. He changed that, and it worked for a long time. But again, I think it's the work we did off the ball that was a big element to making that work. And if it doesn't work, you go to places like Norwich. We've said how good the league is this year. If we're not going to go to those sorts of places and put a shift in, there's going to be a lot more 3-1 defeats and probably heavier away to bigger sides.
I think I'm going to touch on something that you said earlier on the EFL debate show. For anyone that hasn't watched it, go and check it out. Ben was flying the flag for that Millwall podcast earlier, and touched on the fact that Gary Rowett perhaps is a victim of his own success over the last couple of years. You know, turning us into a competing championship side, and we've got to the point now where we had our opportunity, we didn't take it. The expectation from the fans is that we're so close. You know, should we be a top 6 side? Should we be challenging for it again? And the fact that we've started so poorly, coinciding with Flemming and other things, I think Rowett is a victim of his own success. One other thing I just wanted to ask you guys, this will be literally just yes or no. Had what had happened with John Berylson, unfortunately, obviously, you know, as we all know, he's passed away, was around the same time that Burnley were looking to purchase Zian Flemming. Had John Berylson had not been involved in that unfortunate accident, would Zian Flemming still be a Millwall player, Joe?
Probably not, to be fair. I think, you know, maybe him being there, I think talks would have continued, and you know, things were cooking, things were quite hot at the time, weren't they? I think they wanted him, made it quite clear they wanted him. And naturally, out of respect, they've had to back off. Everything kind of goes a bit quiet and a bit sort of cold. And then imagine Burnley then done what they had been doing. That they've looked at other options, looked at other players that are available, and I think they kind of looked at different avenues. And of course, looking at Zian start of the season hasn't been that great. He's not exactly been impressing us, let alone them who want to buy him. So I think there is an element that had John not passed away sadly, then perhaps talks would have continued, and who knows, he could have well joined them for a good fee.
Ben, same question.
Yeah, I got to agree with Joe, to be honest, mate. I think, I think that the way the bidding was kind of working out and the incremental bids that kept coming in, I think we were probably getting nearer the number that the club wanted. And as Joe said, it might have been just out of respect that Burnley just backed off with everything that happened. So I didn't think he was going to be here the way it was going. So I'm going to say, had John not passed, then I don't think he would be still playing for Millwall.
And I'll ask you the same. I think it might be a clean sweep here, but yes or no, would Sian Fleming still be here?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain he probably would have packed his bags and gone. Dream move for a footballer to play in the Premier League. But now Burnley have signed plenty of kind of attacking-minded players this summer. Don't really know if any Premier League team now will come in for him, especially the way he's kind of started the season. So looks like he might have to get his head back down and get working again.
Didn't they just sign Bailey as well from youngster? Was it from Villa? I can't remember who he plays for.
Aaron Ramsey from Villa.
Ramsey from Villa.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, sorry. Which again, I'm not saying he's more of a winger than a number 10, but a lot of money's been shelled out on him. It makes you wonder: is there anything left to get Fleming? Do they need Fleming at the moment?
I don't think they do. They've signed so many players that can play across the front three or four. So I think he could be staying put.
Yeah, I agree.
Obviously, we after the game, there's a lot of chat, a lot of talk on social media between us boys. We did spaces, and there's been a lot of opinions, and not really many positives to take out of the game, which is something that managers and fans look for. But one thing that did stand out, we're going to try and raise the mood a little bit, was the first goal in a Millwall shirt for Idemo Amaku. We touched on it earlier that along with Romain Esse, Amaku's possibly been one of our better players so far this season. And I felt quite sorry for him, actually, because he's just scored his first goal in English football, first goal for his obviously newish club. And no one's really seemed to care about it. It's just kind of gone under the radar. But it was very pleasing to see it on the score sheet.
Yeah, he took it well as well. Fair play to him. And at least it gave something for the fans who had stayed to kind of smile, cheer about. So hopefully.
We wasn't cheering. Trust me.
Well, okay then. Well, listen. Hopefully, him and SA can. They seem to have got a little partnership playing for the youth team together. Look like they're kind of carrying it forward now to the first team. So let's hope we don't have to rely on these lads all season and completely wear them down before they've even get their careers going.
And finally, just the last thing on Norwich. Joe, this is specifically for you. We saw Andreas Bogelsammer in a Millwall shirt for the first time in the league this season. Reports have come out this evening that Voggy may be on his way back to Germany. Thoughts on a potential transfer for the German?
Well, first of all, I'm extremely gutted and I'm really, really sad. Look, at the end of the day, Voggy is who he is. He can't be anything else, unfortunately. He's not that great. You know how I feel about him. But to be fair, he does put the graft and he puts effort in. But he's probably a League One player at best. He's playing at a level that's too high for him, unfortunately. So if there is a bid, where a bid might be, I think they should just got to go and accept it. Even if it's a free, just get him off the wage bill, send him off. I said to you on the group chat earlier, I'll drive him to the airport. I'll even fucking help him pack his bags if he needs me to go and give him a hand. So wish him well, Voggy. If you do get the move, all the best. Hope it really, really works out for you. But unfortunately, it hasn't happened over here. Although Dan spoilt my enthusiasm from leaving by reminding me that he was our top assist player last season with 5 assists. So I don't know how I feel about that now. Letting go.
Well, we're already struggling for goals as it is. So
exactly. So I'm a little bit torn, which is a bit unusual. I think I'll just be singing and dancing at this point. But yeah, good riddance though.
I think just on that, and Ben or Dan, I'd probably come to both of you on this. I think if he's not going to be involved in the first team, I think on Sunday, Rowett had just got to the point where it was just kind of like, just try anything, just put anyone on at this point. If he's not going to be involved, he's clearly down the pecking order behind a lot of players in attacking positions. I would imagine he's probably on a decent wage. I guess it might be a good move all round, Ben, for him to move on and perhaps put the wages to use elsewhere.
Yeah, potentially. What's Voggy now? 30? Was he 31? That sort of age.
I think, yeah.
I mean, there's no real upside in. Like, he got his extension last year because he hit his number of games, didn't he? Or starts, whatever he had in his contract. So he got that extension. I'd imagine he'd have been on a fairly decent wage coming over from Germany. So, yeah, there's not going to be any resale potential there. If it gets him off the wage book now, fine. The only argument I would say with Voggy is I get the calls for SA to start and the younger and Amaku to start and things like that. But Norwich away wouldn't have been a bad option for Voggy to start. We know what he does defensively against those bigger sides. If we need someone to put a bit of extra work in going backwards, he isn't the worst option. We know he's not great going forward. We know he's got his limitations. I really do understand that. But yeah, look, in those sorts of games, he hasn't done bad for us. I know he's a forward player, but defensively, he's a defensive-minded winger, shall we say? But yeah, getting him off the wage bill, I don't think it's a bad thing. He's going to play more football, isn't he? I'd imagine back in Germany as well.
And before we move on to potential either strengthening and looks ahead to perhaps the Stoke game, Dan, one player finally from Sunday that seemed to be getting a little bit of recognition, albeit it was probably not that difficult to get any recognition if you was able to find a blue shirt, is George Evans, who come on. There seems to be a lot of noise around George Evans at the moment, whether he should be playing, should he be getting more opportunity? He looked like, someone at the back who perhaps can do what Rowett wants his centre-backs to do. What are your thoughts?
Well, when he first joined, I thought that kind of 6-month period when he first joined, I didn't think he was a bad player at all then. Clearly, it's all gone a bit downhill for him since then. I think the club have probably tried to move him on, and it hasn't happened, probably due to wages. I imagine he's probably on decent money, obviously being at Derby before and also being on Man City's books as a youth player. But you know what, like, we're shit defensively, so I'd be more than happy, for him to get a game. I think I'd probably be more happy seeing him in a 3. But maybe if we wanted to play a diamond in midfield, he could play at the base there because at least he wants to try and get on the ball and try and pick out a pass, which is a lot more than you could probably say for a lot of our players. So I at this point I don't feel like we can get much worse, which is a slightly alarming thing to be saying when we aren't even in the final week of August yet. So I'd be up for giving him a go. Why not?
And Joe, I know I've seen a couple of your tweets, and I'm sure I think there was a couple of messages in the group chat from you about George Evans. Would you be willing, or would you be happy to see him perhaps get an opportunity to start a game, or would that really be pushing the fans to a limit, perhaps on Saturday?
George Evans, aka the Peckham Pirlo, I think definitely deserves a chance at midfield. I mean, don't get me wrong. I couldn't see him operating in a 2-man midfield when we're playing the 5 at the back and the 3 forwards, let's say, because there's a lot of ground to cover. That's not his game. George is a sort of player who, yes, he will try and win the ball back, but he's not really a person that's going to run around like Sav, like Mitchell, like Denore. He's going to go in and press and win the ball. He's a player that you need to kind of, dare I say it, almost kind of build a team around him a little bit. If you're playing say like a diamond midfield like Dan suggested, or even just a 3-man midfield, and put him in the middle in a deep late line role, and just get him pinging the balls and getting things moving. I mean, Dan, you missed the best bit, mate, when you went home at the Norwich game, because he was getting on the ball, he was picking the ball up from our defenders, turning, hitting diagonal balls, to our forwards, to our wingers, making things happen. I mean, someone took the piss out of him because he played a ball into the channel that went nowhere. But I quite liked it. The ball came to him. The first touch, he just pinged this ball over. And I'm not sure if it was Nisbet or Bradshaw at the time, didn't read it and didn't go. And by the time they realised it was too late. But I just love the fact that he came on and he thought, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to make things happen. I'm going to try my best to make things happen. And he was the only player I felt that made a difference in our team that actually wanted to create something or make something happen. And he always played with a bit of freedom. In some ways, we're 3-0 down. I think he realised he couldn't do any worse. So he probably thought, fuck it, I'm just going to go out there, enjoy myself, show what I can do. And it was a great 10-minute cameo for him to express himself, to show the Millwall fan base, to show Rowett and everyone else there, look, give me a chance, this is what I can do. But if we were drawing 0-0 or if we were winning 1-0 and he came on for the last 10 minutes, would he have played that way? Would he have been as creative or try and make things happen? Probably not. He would have kept Rowett would have made sure of that. He would have just kept things really tight, very, very simple and not shown. But I would love to see him playing against Stoke on Saturday. But he needs to be playing with, other sort of midfielders alongside him to give him the opportunity to get on the ball, have a bit of time on the ball, and make some passes and get things happening. If we played a 4-4-2 formation with diamond midfield, and he sits at the bottom of that diamond, it allows our fullbacks to get forward. He can even drop in as a centre back if we have to defend on a counter. He can do that, but more importantly, just give him the ball. If he can find that pocket of space and time to get on the ball to look at a pass and make things happen, I'd love to see him sort of play there, but not just play half a game or one game. Give him a few games. Give him a chance to kind of show what he can do. Sorry, I've rambled on a bit too much there, but no, I just want to make a case for him. I quite like what I saw.
No, you know what as well? We all remember a few seasons ago how well Shane Ferguson came back from the dead. And, I think did he even go on and win our Player of the Season award that year? Or he was definitely in the top 3. So, I'm all for players getting second chances. My one concern is with Evans, is that, he isn't the most popular player among the fans as it is. So, if he puts a couple of passes into the stands, then that's going to be his confidence, which probably, it might be a bit higher after Sunday, probably isn't going to be ridiculously high, maybe going straight back down the drain. But, I'd be up for seeing him get a game.
Before I move on, I can't help but notice that whilst the two of you were talking there, Ben had the biggest smirk on his face. Ben, George Evans?
Yeah, the fact that we're even talking about George Evans as being our season saviour is concerning to me. No, I don't doubt his pedigree. Obviously, he was a Man City youth player, wasn't he? So, I can't get behind that. Sorry, lads. I just can't. Look, he did okay when the game was finished. They packed it in. They'd all gone home by that point, hadn't they, Norwich? So, I can't. Sorry, I just can't get behind that. Sorry, lads.
You say that, Ben. You say that, but a lot of people said that about, the game was done. It was 3-0 down. Did you see Norwich's reaction when Emakhu scored? They were gutted. They couldn't get that clean sheet.
They just wanted their extra money for the clean sheet bonus. That's all they were.
I don't know who it was. Who was right behind Emakhu's shot, but he threw his arms up in the air. Yeah, I did see that. I did notice that.
I think they do care. Don't get it wrong. They weren't bothered about going the other way. They weren't too bothered about going forward and scoring more goals. I think they could have done if they wanted to put the foot down. They could have scored 4 or 5. But at that point, I think they're quite happy to sit back and contain us, which probably allowed Evans a bit more time on the ball. The point I'm making is he gets on the ball, he's hitting 35, 40-yard passes to the player, like perfect passes, and making things happen, and just trying to, play little through balls in. And I just thought it was so good to watch and see that happen, because up until that moment, we had zero creativity. And we're talking about players like, Watmore, Fleming playing, Billy Mitchell. There's players that can make things happen, but they didn't. I
don't disagree with that, mate. Yeah, I'm struggling with that one. I'm struggling with that one.
You know what, actually, lads, before you two continue this, Stephen, what do you think on this? Because you've done an excellent job hosting tonight, mate, but we haven't heard your opinion enough. So, George Evans?
I'll be honest with you. I do actually agree with Joe. I thought it was nice to see someone actually try and play forward passes and try and be a little bit outside the box with his passing. Is he the season saviour? Probably not. And I think with Rowett being under pressure, if he goes to George Evans, I think the fans are just going to go absolutely nuts about it. But I would like to perhaps see him given an opportunity. I actually would like to see him given an opportunity in a centre half position rather than in a 3, not in a 2. I think in a 2 it would be quite risky. But if you're going to go with a 3 at the back, I think if you want someone that's comfortable on the ball, asking your goalkeeper to roll the ball out to them, you put the ball at Cooper's feet or Hutchinson's feet at the moment, and they just panic and they haven't got a clue what they're doing. Again, I do have to say, as Ben said, George Evans, the saviour, is very, very worrying. But we can't do no worse than what we did on Sunday, so why not?
And is it very telling as well? Sorry, can I just say, is it very telling as well? He started the under-23s game as well. A few of the senior players started that under-23s game in the week. Evans was one of them. Is he trying to get a bit of fitness into his legs? And
apparently, he played really well, Dan. I spoke to someone who's actually there watching the game, and they said he looked really, really good. It's like he had a point to prove, apparently. I just wish he fucking did it a year ago. He's left it a little bit late, isn't he?
Go on, Ben, before we move on. Final words on George.
Just going back to probably more what Dan said, I think, look, we're in a bit of a period at the moment where it can get toxic pretty quick. I think it's only going to take, as Dan said, one misplaced pass, one tackle that he doesn't win, half wins, something like that, and the geezer's going to get absolutely both barrels, and he will be the scapegoat number 2 behind Gary Rowett, to be honest. So, yeah, look, I don't think we're doubting his quality. He is decent on the ball. I would rather see him in a back 3 than in that holding midfield role, is what I would say. Actually, will I? I don't know. I don't think we can defend. I don't know.
That's my question mark. That's my question mark. Can he defend? I can't remember which game it was. There was a game we played at home. Was it against Reading? I can't remember who it was now, when he came on at the end. You guys must remember this. And he played on the left side of a back 3 for the last sort of 10, 15 minutes of the game. And he looked really good. Everyone say about how well he played. But if you remember at that point, was it against Charlton maybe? I can't remember who it was now. But basically, I think it was Charlton. They just went back in defence and gave him the time. No one was pressing him. And he looked really good. He was picking lovely little passes. But I want to see what he's like the other way, defending, and I think when we went 2-2 in that game with Charlton, that's when he's under a little bit of pressure. And I think he dealt with it all right, to be fair. But yeah, I think Evans sort of player that he needs time on the ball. And for that, I'm not sure where you'll play, whether it be a defence in the back 3 or whether it be in the bottom of a midfield diamond.
Well, I'm going to pick your brains even further now, and perhaps I can get you to push you for who might start on Saturday. We host one of Gary Rowett's former clubs in Stoke City. They've had a very good transfer window. They brought in some real quality over the course of the summer. A very much dark horse, or perhaps not so much a dark horse anymore, for a top 6 finish. Ben, I'll come straight to you. We need a response from whatever 11 players are put out in a blue shirt. What are you expecting from Rowett on Saturday and the players?
In terms of the players, well, again, as I keep saying, at the very, very least, we need some sort of effort from them. Home crowd. I think this is a really important game, because I think if it goes like we all probably expect it to, it's going to be a tough afternoon again, then it's going to turn very toxic very quick for Rowett. And then you look forward to the next couple of games. You've got a Birmingham City that are flying high, Tom Brady effect, they're on the up. And then we've got the small matter of Leeds at home. So it's not getting any easier. In in terms of who would I bring in personnel wise, it's tough to see where we make too many changes. And I alluded to it again earlier that I thought it's one of the stronger squads that we had, but I don't know what I don't know. He needs to do something. It needs to be a change. There is a formation change that then forces personnel to play in different areas. I'm at a loss. I hope Gary Rowett's got some ideas because he's going to need it, I think, on Saturday.
And similar question to you. Obviously, we need a response. I think that the crowd will be on an edge from minute one. There's going to be no hiding for Gary Rowett. There's going to be no hiding for these players. The fans will be demanding a response. I will ask you: do you think there'll be any changes? And would you? This is just my take. Would you go and say to Tom Bradshaw and Kevin Nisbet, "You've got a partnership. Let's make something happen. Let's kickstart our season."
Just on that point, why has that not happened already? Genuinely, I'm baffled by the Bradshaw thing. He's come off his best season for the club. I'd imagine his best season. I don't know for facts, but it's got to be near enough his best season ever, isn't it? Playing professionally. I don't know why that hasn't happened already. If I'm Tom Bradshaw, and I think he was so unlucky last year that he didn't win Player of the Season, him and Sav would have been gutted that Fleming won it. But I just can't see how that's happened. The only thing I can think of is that we battered him into the ground last year and he's still carrying a little niggle. That could be my only thought in him not playing more than he has so far. I get Nisbet's possibly marquee signing in the summer, the man we targeted in January. I get that, but he hasn't. Yeah, I can only imagine he's still carrying some sort of niggle over from last year. Sorry, Joe.
I just asked a question. I think it's because Rowett's got this system. He wants a lone striker. He never ever thought that Bradshaw was the answer. Bradshaw worked so hard last season, got lucky a few times, scored a few goals, and kept his place. But now he's got Nisbet. Nisbet's doing the job as what he wants. He wants a lone striker. He doesn't want to play two up front. And he quite likes the idea of having Fleming behind and Watmore on the other side or whatever. And I think that's the reason why he's not sort of playing him.
Again, going back to then about the Fleming piece about dropping him, why not change it then and go with the two up top and have a go with Bradders and Nisbet up front? That would be an option.
It's a very, very brave move. I mean, if you're Rowett and you want to keep your job, do you or do you not drop Fleming for this game against Stoke? Because if you drop him and you play the youngsters, you start with Maku and Esse, the players that you feel are trying and really want to be there, and George Evans, dare I say it, then if they get a win and win 2-0, he can sort of puff his chest out and go, you know what, there you go. I've made my point. I've dropped the players I feel are not performing, and these guys were out there done the business. However, if he picks the same team on Saturday, more or less, that start the last few games, that shows me he's got no desire of changing anything. I think he's almost hoping we'll lose and he'll get the sack and get a big payoff. Because after you slag off the players and say they were not performing, how the youngsters will perform much better, how can you then go and start those same players and not start the youngsters if you feel that the ones are performing? So Saturdays, we really tell him we look at the lineup. And answer to your question, Stephen, I don't know whether he will or will not. To be honest with you, I'm really sort of stuck whether he'll change the team or not. But I tell you what, if he doesn't, that for me says it all. Because any other managers fighting for the job and you've got the last throw at the dice, you're going to make some changes. You know, and you want players out there that are going to play for you, that are going to perform for you, that are going to run through walls for you. And if the players, some of the players are not doing that, which you could quite clearly see the ones that are not doing that, even the likes of Danny McNamara, who's been very, very disappointing. If he starts as well, for me, that's Rowett's way of trying to get out. You know, trying to get himself the sack really by using the players and then not performing.
I think the key thing as well, what you said there, Joe, is the press conference. I think it's the first time probably ever that he's kind of questioned the desire of the players, etc. Yeah. So if he's come out and said that, which obviously he has, and then doesn't change it, as you say, that's going to be very telling in his thought process moving forward. He has to do something Saturday for me. Whether, as I say, whether it's a change of formation, dropping certain players, but Something
I think
has to
everything,
change.
Ben. I think everything. What you just said there. I think everything is a formation change. It's a system change. It's a different approach to the game. You can't fucking sit back. That's not working. And sit back and just inviting pressure. Hoping you can catch teams on the break. Because as soon as you go 1-0 down, you're fucked. You're better off going for it from the start. Try and get your noses in front. And if you're not, then what difference it make? You still got to attack the ball if you go a goal down. But a lot has to change. Players change, formation change, tactic change. A lot's got to change on Saturday. And if we don't see that on Saturday, that says it all. He just wants out. But of course, he'll never resign. He'll want to get sacked. And I think he did exactly the same thing his last few days at Stoke, didn't he? From what a few of the fans have been saying.
Yeah, just on the back of that, Dan, obviously we've heard from supporters of Stoke City and the local podcasts up there that it's a similar situation than what we're finding ourselves in with Rao at the moment. Whether he sarcastically clapped or what at Stoke, I don't know, but there was obviously something that happened. Is it a case of perhaps last chance saloon at the Den for Rowett, in your opinion, Dan?
I don't think Rowett actually realises how much pressure he's under, to be honest. I think if we go 1-0 down at the weekend, it's going to be absolutely horrible for him in there. And he's going to not wait. He will not be able to wait to get out that night if we end up losing that game. Because it won't just be us singing that. It'll be Stoke. They'll be coming down, giving it large as they do. And, they don't like Gary out, so they'll probably be joining in singing that with us as well. If I was Rowett, I'd be making mass changes, letting the players know that is unacceptable. What has been going on in the last few days, last few games, sorry. Going back to Reading, we've got an aggregate score now of 8-1. I mean, I could go bang on to death about that Reading game, but I'm going to say it again quickly. Losing 4-0 against Reading's kids, there's clearly something wrong in that dressing room at the minute. Whether that is Rowett's pissed off the players have stopped playing for him, I don't know. But he needs to make mass changes. That's what I think, and I think he might go to a 5-3-2, but take out the attacking midfielder and go for a defensive midfielder. I think he really likes that formation. He's tried to play it a few times before, and it might please us if we get our two up top. You're on mute, Joe.
Joe is currently talking for the purpose of a podcast. Joe was mid sentence there, but he was muted. So
you know what? It's the first time
I've
ever done that. I usually slag Mickey off for doing that. He does that all the time. So sorry about that, guys. Without sort of backtracking too much, the end of awards last season, obviously you got the pleasure of talking to players and everything else. I'm not going to mention the player's name because it's unfair to put this person in it. But this player, let's just say he's an attacking player for Millwall, a very decent attacking player, a good pro. And we spoke about the tactics that Rowett plays. And he kind of whispered as we were sort of talking together. And he sort of said, look, I'll be honest with you, I don't like it. Is what he said. I don't enjoy it. He said, I don't like the defensive side of it, what he wants us to try and do. I like to express myself and get forward and be creative, he said. But his words were, but what can you do? The results speak for themselves. And I'm thinking back to that conversation I had with this guy. If that's what he's thinking, and several other Millwall players think the same thing as well, they're not really happy with the system, but it's working and you can't argue it. The fact that it's not working now and they're still playing the shit system, I can only imagine they're all thinking to themselves, what is the fucking point of this? You want us to defend, you want us to think defensively, and we're not getting results. And I can only imagine they're not enjoying their football whatsoever at the moment. Confidence is low, we know that. But when you're not enjoying your football and you're getting beat and you're not winning games and and all the fans are jumping on you and everything else, it can't be a happy changing room. And once that changing room becomes what it becomes, it spreads like wildfire. At the moment, it hasn't quite caught the youngsters. I think they're still quite, green and they're still quite raw. And all they care about is playing football. Don't give a shit, But honestly, you can see how it's affecting it. It's getting right through the whole sort of team, the whole sort of squad at the moment. And like you say, we don't get a result on Saturday, it's curtains. It's got to be, surely.
On that subject, I'm going to come to all of you, Joe. I'm going to come back to you first. You are in the dugout on Saturday, and you're picking the 11. Who's your 11?
Okay, very, very easy. So I'm going to go with the 4-4-2 with the diamond. So I'm going to go with, if Joe Bryan's fit, Joe Bryan left back, Cooper Hutch at the back. I'm going to go with Ryan Leonard at right back. Obviously, Sarkic in goal. So I'm not going to play Danny Mack. Put Ryan Leonard right back. Ryan Leonard can play at centre back. We've seen him play in a free. We've seen him play as a wing back. He can do that role. The midfield, I'm going to have the Peck and Pirlo in the DM role, just in front of Coops and Hutch. Alongside him, I'm going to have, this is what I can't quite work out. I may have Denore definitely, if he's fit, and possibly Sav or Mitchell, not quite sure, one of those two. In the top of the diamond, for this Saturday's game, I might drop Fleming, put him on the bench, a bit like what the guy said earlier. Let's teach him a lesson. Let's show him, listen, you're not bigger than the club. If you're not performing, you don't get picked. I'll have him on the bench. I'll have Esse in that top of the diamond, behind the front two of Imaku and Nisbet. Now, people will say, why are you not putting Bradshaw in Nisbet? I'll tell you why. We need that pace to stretch the defenders. And I just thought Bradshaw and Nisbet, although they can play together, they're a little bit similar style of players. Whereas Nisbet can sort of run the channels. He's got the legs. He can get beyond the defenders, catch them on the counter, which will create more space for Nisbet in the box to score goals. The width will come from the fullbacks, from Joe Bryan and Ryan Leonard, who can get forward. And hopefully they'll get forward because they have the license of George Evans sitting back deep and creating a defensive free if we get countered.
Ben, same question to you. You're in the dugout. Who's your 11?
Well, I'm going to play Connell Truman, Bart, and Sarkic. And just hope
and put the Blue Mill bus in there as well, why don't you?
Get the bus in and just like we keep the ball out the back of the net.
And Zampa, we ain't doing much.
Yeah, see if we can get Zampa in there as well.
One of the corners.
Yeah, see if we can get him in. Just hope that we don't concede 3. I'm at a bit of a loss at the minute, to be honest. I know it's just an easy question, but obviously I'm going to have to start Sarkic. Just on him, by the way, he looked a bit suspect at times on Sunday and starting to worry me a little bit. Certainly.
Let's just pick on another player tonight then. Why don't we, lads?
Yeah, sorry.
Let's hope the players aren't listening to this.
It's like bonfire night, isn't it? What else can we throw on there? What else can we burn?
No, so I'll start with Sarkic. Do you know what? I'm gonna play Harding, give him a chance at right back. I'm going to go with Joe. I'm going to play 4-4-2 and play the diamond, I think, just to change it up.
Evans, the Peck and Pirlo.
Obviously with the Peck and Pirlo, deep line playmaker, I'm going to say, if we're going all Aldo and football manager mode.
The quarterback in the team.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Hutch Coop. If Brian's fit, obviously him left back, so Harding right back. Is Casper the Ghost going to be fit? Do we know what's his situation?
Maybe they've put him down as a doubt. I think it might be Birmingham.
Okay, so Casper's not going to be available. Do you know what? I'll give the Peck and Pirlo a run out. Go on then. In the anchor role.
I don't think we've got many other options at this point.
No, exactly. Sav and Mitch. Yeah, I'm going to agree with Joe. I'm going to drop Fleming. I don't think we can keep carrying him. And if we can't find a way to get him in the game or for him to influence games, then something needs to change in that area. I'm going to stick Esse in there, in behind the front two. I'm not going to start a Maku. I would go with Bradders and Nisbet. And similar to what Joe said, I know we need a bit of pace, but I'm kind of hoping that we can hang on in there as long as possible against Stoke, and then we'll bring a Maku on late on with that bit of pace and maybe change it. So, yeah, I'd go with the 4-4-2 diamond as well.
And Dan, finally to you. You're in the dugout. What are you doing?
I don't know if I might get pelters for this. I don't know if I can play a 4 after how badly it went at Norwich. Stoke are very good going forward. In particular, they've got this Vidigal bloke who's who's scored in all 4 games, and he generally plays left wing or left striker. So it could be, if it's the lineup I think he's going to go, it's going to be a very long afternoon for either Danny McNamara or Hutchinson. But if I was the manager, I would be going with Sarkic in goal, Leonard right wing back, Harding right centre back, Evans in the middle, Cooper on the left, Brian left wing back. Denor's fit, he goes in. If not, it's Saville alongside Mitchell. SA in the 10. I'm dropping Fleming as well, and then Maku and Bradshaw up front. I think he's got to send a message out. That's about as many players as I could change in the team. I mean, on a note as well, by the way, if Adam Malachi is going to stay in the first team squad, why are we still starting Murray Wallace at left back?
True. Good point.
If we've got a player like Adam Malachi who we haven't seen him play all that much, but when we have, he's impressed us. I'd rather see him play at left back than Murray Wallace getting rinsed by Gabriel Sara every 10 minutes. And I'm gonna put this out. I'm gonna put this out there now. I think if we lose the next 2 games, then Rowett needs to go. I think the international break gives a perfect time to try and get a manager in. I've already said who my preferred choice would be if he was to go. I'll save that for if he does go. Let's not put any more petrol on top of the fire tonight. But I think it's got two tough games, but the form from the end of March, even the end of February last season, has been very concerning.
I'm not just going to throw you guys under the bus. I'll go with an 11, as it's only fair to do that rather than watch Ben struggle to try and put a team together and not do it myself. I think Sarkic in goal is an obvious one. I think that would be my choice as well. I'd go Leonard at right back. I would go Hutchinson and Cooper at centre back. I can't believe you said it. You took the words out of my mouth. Dan, if Joe Bryan's not fit, I would play the young lad Malachi left back and give him an opportunity. I would go with a 4-2-3-1, what we were similarly playing last year. I would have Kasper and Sav as the 2 holding midfielders. I would go all out. I would have Duncan Watmore on the left. I'd have a Maku on the right, SA in the number 10, and Nisbet as the striker. But I would say to SA to get getting as close to Nisbet as possible to give him a little bit of support. And I know it's Gary Rowett, and I know that we've spoke about this, but again, if it was me, and I'm hoping that Rowett sees it as an opportunity, we need to be starting the game on the front foot. We have to be getting attacking players on the pitch and trying to bring the crowd. Because if you don't bring the crowd into it early doors on Saturday, he's just going to get pelters, and it's just not going to be a nice atmosphere for him. If you've made it to this part of the video, if we can either get in hashtag Peckham Pirlo in the comments, that would be absolutely fantastic. And also, if you are still here, if you would comment, would you drop Zian Fleming for the fixture against Stoke City? Obviously, all 4 of us have said that we would, but what are your thoughts? Finally, before we do a little bit of an outro and wrap up, again, putting you on the spot, Dan, I'm going to come to you first. Can I get a score prediction for Saturday, please?
I think we'll score, but I think we'll lose. 2-1 Stoke.
Ben?
Do I have to? Yeah, I just, to your point there, Stephen, if we don't start on the front foot, it's going to be toxic. It's going to be just such a bad atmosphere. Dan's already made the point. They're going to be Stoke fans are going to be all over Gary Rowett as it is. If they go 1-0 up early, it's going to be grim. I can only hope that we can hang on for a point, and I'm going to say 1-0.
Yo.
I think it's going to be terrible. I know it sounds bad. Like I said, I don't think Rowett's going to change it. I think he's just happy to see it out, get the sack. The players are clearly not going to play for him. And I think we might lose, but I think we might lose heavily. And I don't think we'll even score. I think we'll probably lose like 3-0.
Okay,
there will definitely be that riot that Mickey was asking for afterwards if that happens. Or very close to being.
we got hammered when we did our prediction video for being very negative, and negative Dan seemed to have been the outcome of that. Well, we're negative Joe, negative Ben, negative Dan tonight. I'm going to be stupidly optimistic. I can't sit here and have us all just go, no, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. I am backing the boys. I'm going to do it. I'm backing the boys. 2-0 Millwall. SA to get on the score sheet again. And all will be right in the world. You heard it here first.
So on that note of optimism, I'll see you all there Saturday then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think whilst all the other three panelists go and think, why the hell have they done a show with him? He's an idiot for thinking we're going to win on Saturday. Thanks for listening. It's been a bit of a longer one tonight. Joe, Dan, and Ben, it's been a pleasure as always. It's been great to do a show. I think it's the first time all four of us have done one together, so it's been great to catch up. Hopefully,
all the youngsters together.
Yay!
All the kids.
Joe being the youngest one of the group, of course.
May 27.
That still wouldn't make you the youngest either. Hopefully you guys at home have enjoyed it. Obviously, you know, at the moment the atmosphere is a little bit dreary, and perhaps it's hard to talk about the club and where we might be going moving forward. But hopefully you've enjoyed listening. Check us out on YouTube, on Twitter at That Millwall Pod, Instagram, TikTok. We're active across all of the social media. If you don't agree with any of our comments, feel free to get involved and drop us comments. We look at all of them. We appreciate any of the feedback that you guys give us. As I say, I'll be the optimistic one. 2-0 to Millwall on Saturday. Back the boys, and all will be right in the world come 5 o'clock on Saturday evening. Thanks for listening, and that's been another episode of That Millwall Podcast.